Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates. This show is produced in association with my dear friend, Lucas A. Ferrara. Okay, I'm going to talk a lot for the next few minutes, so get ready, because this is going to be a very informative show tonight. There's nothing more American than being a farmer. Wait a minute, not so fast. Did you know that less than 2% of Americans are farmers? That's 2% of our population feeding the other 98%. That's incredibly nuts. And even with a small percentage of farmers, the United States is still one of the largest producers of food in the world. We export billions of dollars of livestock and crops each year. Now, farming is something that I just don't know a lot about. To know me is to know I'm not often hanging out in the dirt with the worms, but eating well is very important to me. I am curious about the food system in our country. I want to know the process, and that's something I've always showed interest in. When we sit down at a restaurant, we don't think about the carrot that's in that salad, right? Like, who picked that carrot? What kind of care did it get? We just eat it and move on. But the story behind how it got on your plate goes so much deeper, and that's what we'll be diving into on tonight's show. The farming we are discussing tonight is called regenerative agriculture. We use mostly conventional farming, and that often depletes the soil and requires synthetic inputs, whereas regenerative agriculture emphasizes building and nurturing the soil, improving the water retention, increasing biodiversity, with the intention of regenerating degraded landscapes. In turn, what you harvest from that soil is often a better quality. And there are so many environmental benefits for farming this way. And let me tell you a few. First, there's carbon sequestration, and this is where healthy soils pull significant carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Next, there's improved water retention in the soil, and this increases drought resistance and reduces runoff and erosion. There's also a boost in the biodiversity. When you farm this way, it encourages more pollinators and is beneficial for the insects and wildlife in nature. It also provides a resilience to climate change. It helps build stronger systems that can adapt to weather extremes. Now, I feel very passionate about this episode. I think you'll find tonight's show to be eyebrow-raising and will make you look at the food supply in this country a little bit differently. Listen, I may fall short on a lot of things as a mom, but I do pride myself in making sure I feed my kids healthy foods that are whole foods, that are made with clean ingredients, and it's important to me that the food comes from a good place as much as possible. Sometimes things being organic just isn't enough. I want to tell you about my guest that is on the show tonight. Her name is Melissa Sumner of Sumner Farms. She is a homeschooling, stay-at-home mom turned regenerative farmer running a 100-acre farm alongside her husband Ian and their 4 small children. They live on their farm in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, which is about, I'd say, 2 hours northwest of New York City. It's not so far, but definitely feels a world away. Now, Melissa and Ian raise grass-fed cattle, forest-foraged pigs, pasture-raised poultry, and grow a variety of organic produce. They do this all with a deep commitment to producing nutrient-dense, ethically raised food. Rooted in regenerative agriculture, Sumner Farms focuses on building healthy soil. Like I said, increasing the biodiversity, rotational grazing, and working with nature. They believe in the power of slow, intentional living and try to integrate that philosophy into every part of their lives, from parenting and homeschooling to farming and food choices. But here's the kicker. Melissa and her family didn't grow up farming. In fact, they started this journey with zero farming experience. They're self-taught farmers that were just frustrated by the declining quality and lack of transparency of grocery store food. They made the decision to take control of their food system, move to a piece of raw land, and just figure it out along the way. And figure it out they did. This started as a desire to feed their family better, and it's grown into a mission to heal the land and serve the local community with real nourishing food. Okay, I'd now like to invite on the show Melissa Sumner of Sumner Farms. Welcome to Culinary Confidential.
Hello, Christina. Thank you.
This is going to be great. Okay, you know I'm a little bit passionate about this from afar, right? Like I'm very involved in what you're doing, even though I don't want to do that. I don't want to do farming, but I love that you're doing this for the world and for our food supply.
Those people are the same, yeah.
I know, because it's so labor intensive. Can you tell me just a little bit of a summary of what regenerative farming is as it's compared to like what we're used to, which is just conventional farming, which is killing the earth?
Right, it is. So regenerative agriculture as a whole, and I'm no expert, but from what I understand, you're really emphasizing soil health and diverse plants and animals on your farm and rotationally grazing them and minimal disturbance of the land. So conventional farming or even organic farming, you're doing like one crop, or you're doing just all cattle or all pigs, and you're not diversifying the land at all. So you're essentially killing all the nutrients in your soil. So it's really going to be detrimental to our entire earth if we keep going on this conventional farming method that's very common in today's world.
You know what's interesting? I went to Sonoma or Napa. I think I was in Sonoma years ago, and I was at this winery, and the woman said, okay, you know, we raise these grapes here, we grow these grapes here, and the wine was just okay. And then she goes, we had a different approach. We then started to plant all different sorts of plants, trees, and shrubs around the grapevines, and the wine was so much better. And I guess that's kind of a similar mindset. Like if you're building up the environment around what you're growing, everything's going to be better.
Right. So if you think about your traditional farm out in the Midwest, say, where you have just acres and acres of corn, and every year they plant just GMO corn subsidized by the government, that soil is taking all the nutrients that corn needs every year, and they're not replenishing it with anything else. Where, say, you're just a hobby gardener in your backyard, one of the cardinal rules is you rotate your crops. So one year you'll plant tomatoes, and then in that same dirt you'll plant cucumbers the next year, because they require different nutrients. So when you have this monocrop society where you're just planting corn and then corn again and corn again, your soil is just getting completely depleted of any nutrient and any life. Because then on top of that, you're also spraying it with herbicides and pesticides. And all of these things are just killing earth, killing the life that's in the soil.
You know, I guess it's similar to like what you put in your body. If you ate one thing all the time, every day, you're not getting enough nutrients, and the earth is the same way.
Right, yeah. Like regenerative agriculture's key principle is just that soil is alive, so we need to treat it as if it's alive. You know, they say that in I think it's like 1 tablespoon of soil, and like nutrient-dense soil, it's more living organisms than like the entire ocean combined. Like there's so much life.
I didn't know that.
A little tiny bit of soil. I don't know if it's actually like that, but there's more life than you could ever imagine inside just a tiny bit of soil. As long as you're keeping that life and you're actually replenishing it and giving it nutrients, and it's alive. So we need to treat it like it is.
That's amazing. Okay. So I want to talk about your farm a little bit. What do you have on your farm?
So we raise 100% grass-fed cattle. We have forage-fed pigs and meat, pasture-raised meat birds, chickens, turkeys, egg layers. We also have fun animals like goats, but they don't do really anything helpful. But
they're just decoration.
They're just there to keep the kids busy some days, yeah.
I mean, what's a farm without a goat, right?
Yeah, they have to have their little call in the background just to make it sound good.
Now, I have to say, I have had a Thanksgiving turkey, okay, from Sumner Farms out in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, which is Melissa's farm. I've had a Thanksgiving turkey, and I have had a meat chicken, which I didn't know before, you got involved in this. There are different chickens. There's meat chickens that you eat, and then there's the chickens that lay eggs, 2 different things. So I've had like a young, what is it called, a young chicken when you roast it?
Yeah, just a pasture-raised whole chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can taste the difference. And I eat solely organic, so it's not like I'm buying, I don't know, like a Purdue chicken and roasting it. I eat, I think, pretty well. But there is something to be said for produce and like animals that are raised in a regenerative agriculture setting. You taste the difference.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's a reason for that.
Tell me.
The reason is that when animals are like stressed, whether it be from like overcrowding or rough handlers, or they're just living in fear, their bodies will actually release hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, same as humans. But that stress doesn't just, disappear. It goes into their muscles, which is the meat that we're eating. So the meat will become tougher, and the texture is dry and dark and sticky, and there's a shorter shelf life on the meat just because you are eating a stressed animal compared to a regenerative farm animal where they live their days with plentiful pasture. They'll just roam around and sit in the sun, and it actually gives the food more nourishment. There's actually scientifically more nutrients in a regenerative animal versus a conventionally farmed animal.
Wow. All right. What's your crop and livestock rotation like?
Okay, so for the cattle,
let's talk the cattle. Yeah.
Grazing. Okay, so we do rotational grazing, it's called. So our farm is 100 acres, but about maybe 50 acres of that is just pasture, where the other 50 is wooded and, brushy areas. So what we've done is we've broken up our pastures. I think maybe there's 6 of them, and they're all permanent electric fence around them. And then every day we go out there and we break the larger pasture, say it's 10 acres, we'll break that up into 5 or 8 sections. And then each day the cows will roam in, an acre or 2. And then that night we'll move them over just right next to where they were, block off the spot that they were just in, and then they just keep moving along into the field. So the reason for that is to let the land rest, right? So when you have a conventional farm, you pack, tens of thousands of cattle into a paddock, and what happens is the grass, the soil gets destroyed because there's mud and there's cows and there's manure, and it's just disgusting. But if you let the land rest, the plants will grow tenfold. The soil's stronger, the roots are deeper. It's creating a healthy environment for the cows. So then what happens is the cows will go through a pasture, they'll eat just the tips of the grass, they'll go through it pretty quickly. Then the land will rest for, say, 30, 60 days. Then when they come back around, there's fresh, abundant pasture where they're calm. They're not searching for food. They're not stressed out where their next meal will come. They're happy. They're just chilling. They're eating their food and they're happy.
So they won't go back to the same patch of grass for 30 to 60 days.
Yep.
Wow.
So we have to kind of time it out appropriately, because especially if there's droughts in the summertime, if you don't have rain, you can see the difference. We have a lot of farms around us, and I don't know of any that do what we do. A lot of them are grain-fed, but you do have some grass-fed cattle around. But I think it was maybe 2 years ago, we had a terrible drought in July, and you could see all around us, all the fields were turning brown, and people were having to buy hay, which in July, to have to feed your cows hay is not only expensive, it's hard to find, and you just don't want to do that. You want to give them the most nutritious food that you can. So we saw our fields, and they're still green. They might be a little more sparse, but we weren't needing to buy hay because we were feeding the soil. The soil was not eroding. It was fine. The cows were fine. We didn't have to go out and buy hundreds of dollars worth of hay just to feed our cows during a drought.
So you don't have like a sprinkler system? I know like 100 acres is a huge plot of land, but you have no sprinkler system. You're just working with Mother Nature.
Yes. So that it has its troubles, but when you do it the right way, it works out. It works out for you in the end.
Is it more expensive to be a regenerative agricultural farmer as opposed to conventional farming?
Absolutely, yeah. I know that to be true because we go into it, we want quality livestock to start with. So our initial cost was buying cattle that were certified in their breed, and a breed that was hardy, a breed that would give birth without medical intervention, So a lot of the cows are bred to be just the largest animal possible, just for production-wise. If you have a bigger cow, you get more product out of that cow. We just wanted a cow that could safely give birth without any intervention from us, from a vet hauling it in to keep the animal safe, stuff like that. But that costs a little extra money. And then we don't buy grain to feed our animals, right? So a lot of people will buy a $10 bag of grain and feed them GMO corn and, maybe it's easier. It might be like, easier to just go out, feed your cow, bucket it the grain for the day, and they're good to go. But we have to pay for electrical fencing. We have to pay for the hay, which is always a lot of money because in the winter we can't just feed them hay. We have to find somebody that has quality hay that gets delivered to us for cattle. But even for our pigs, say, like to get them quality food from another regenerative agriculture farm is costly. It costs a lot of money to find, especially where we live, where we're in a rural area. So we have to find a farm that's 5 hours away that will deliver us quality feed. It's a lot.
And then there's like the whole sweat equity that you're putting into this, because I know, this is a lifestyle. This isn't just a job for you. Like, your whole life revolves around this farm, your vacations, things with your kids. So, I feel like I've had a front seat to watching this for the last several years, like through social media. I actually love your social media, and I think you do such a nice job about what it really is like to be a farmer and do it the right way. So, yeah, like I said, better you than me, Melissa.
I think they say if you want to make $1 million farming, you have to start with $2 million, because you don't go into it to get rich. That's for sure.
Hey, where do you go and buy a cow?
So there's breeders. You have to find cows that are like, we have a specific breed that we looked for. It's considered like a family-sized cow. So they say one full cow feeds a family of 4 for a year. So there's other cows that are like the Angus, I'm sure you've heard of, that are massive animals. You have to kind of split those between multiple families, where ours are very easily handled. Their temperaments are very docile. They're very calm. The kids are very comfortable around them, which is obviously very important to us with 4 little kids. So we had to we found there's breeders kind of all over. We've had some that get brought to us from 8 hours away, 10 hours away across the state. But
Wow.
It's like a little community of people and you know what to look for. If you have a specific breed, then people are passionate about that breed, and they want to make sure that, you get it from a good line and that they're registered. And
it comes from a
really
good
funny.
Family of cows.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a map of our cows are called Dexter cattle. There's an association of Dexter cattle in America. And I get the emails, and there's maps, right, of the breeders. So if you're looking to buy one, you click on the map, and it'll show you what is available in your area. And I got the email, and I was looking, and I was like, oh, wow, there's another breeder near us, Ian. What's going on? And I'm like, oh, my gosh, it's us. Like, we're an official Dexter Cattle of America breeder.
Oh, well, congratulations. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either until I saw us on the international map.
You're making waves in the farming world. All right, what do you think of Monsanto?
Well, what, like all the GMO?
Yeah,
all of that?
They're taking over our food supply and killing us one American at a time.
Yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist for
Are
sure,
you?
But I don't think this is a conspiracy. I think they are definitely poisoning us and profiting from it. I think just, if you think of GMO foods, it's genetically modified organisms. So the government is giving these farmers, these conventional farmers, 60-70% of their profit, like subsidies. They're paying them essentially to kill us. So they get all of these GMO seeds, they plant them, then they sell their corn to, say, even the cattle to feed them, or the pigs, or us, and all this corn syrup and corn oil, all this stuff, right? And what happens is the farmers grow it, it kills us. But then usually when you have a seed, say if I grew corn in my backyard, I can take this corn and I can take the seeds from it and I can plant it next year. You're not allowed to do that. It's actually illegal to replant GMO seeds back into the ground. You can get fined and go to jail for planting. Like, that is not natural. That shouldn't be the way a plant is. A plant is a miracle. Think about it. It's a seed that grows food that you can then take the seed and grow food again. GMO is evil.
It's like fake food.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, we're not Monsanto fans on this show. Okay? Sumner Farm fans over here. All right, we're going to go to our first commercial break, but when we get back, Melissa, I want to talk soil, which is literally the root of everything great that's happening on your farm, whether it's the crops or the livestock or, whatever. And I do want to talk about that Netflix documentary you had me watch, Kiss the Ground.
Okay.
Which was life-changing. Okay? So stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome back to the show. I have Melissa Sumner of Sumner Farms out in Honesdale, Pennsylvania on the show tonight, and we're discussing regenerative agriculture and just being good to the land, right? Melissa, welcome back to the show.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about the Netflix documentary, Kiss the Ground, that you had me watch a couple years ago. That kind of changed your life, right? You found that to be very inspiring.
Yeah, so we were kind of in the beginning of our farming journey, I believe, when that kind of came out. And I think when we watched it, although we were in it, and it was more of a passive farmer at that point. Ian was really the research and the reason why. But I kind of made sense. Like, it was like, okay, this is why we're doing it, and this is why we're doing what we're doing and not the easy way out, if you will. You know, we're working hard every day, but there's a reason. There's a goal, and it's to heal the land, honestly.
And like the Midwest, right? Like those states in the middle of the country, like they're a huge dust bowl now because they've killed the land from conventional farming. So for this segment of the show, I want to focus on the soil. It's the most important part of the farming process. If you don't have healthy soil, you're not going anywhere. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation made of toothpicks. Soil is the living ecosystem, and healthy soil contains billions of microorganisms that are crucial for nutrient cycling and plant health. Soil is a major carbon sink and holds 2 to 3 times more than the atmosphere. Healthy soils can help mitigate climate change by storing the carbon. But soil degradation is widespread, and over 33% of the world's soils are degraded due to erosion, compaction, and nutrient depletion. Intensive agriculture, deforestation, and overgrazing are the key drivers for this. Soil erosion is a critical threat to the globe. Topsoil, which is the most fertile layer, can be lost 10 to 40 times faster than it can be naturally replenished. Without intervention, global food production is at risk. Okay, Melissa, tell us, how do we be good to the dirt? What can non-farmers do to help, kiss the ground, as you say?
Okay, well, so I think that farming as a whole, especially with kind of this plant-based movement and all of that, has kind of coming under fire, where people are saying it's the cow. I don't know if you've heard, but the cow farts are the reason why climate change and global warming.
Wait, the really cow what?
Farts, they say.
I have never heard this. This is
never
true.
heard this. Like the methane and the cow gas. There's so many different things of why they're trying to kind of steer people away from meat. They're saying plant-based is the way to go. Stay away from meat. Your heart. It's really become like an issue, at least in the farming world, from what I know. So it's really just a lie. So carbon, like you talked about, carbon in the air is a greenhouse gas. So that means it kind of traps in heat. So the more carbon in the air, the more heat there is in Earth, basically. It's kind of like the Earth is wrapped in a blanket. And that causes problems. That causes droughts, like in the Midwest, like we talked about, how it's just a dust bowl. It causes flooding and all of these huge storms that we're getting every other day. Mm-hmm. So what regenerative farming does is it kind of pulls the carbon out of the atmosphere and it stores it in the plant. So the plants need carbon, photosynthesis, right? We've all learned about photosynthesis in science class every year. So that's the plant's food. So they store this carbon in their roots and their leaves and their stems, and then the plant dies. And where does all of that carbon go? It goes right into the soil. So the soil is kind of like a sponge for carbon, and the atmosphere needs more things to soak up this carbon. So when the plants then, so say we have cows, right, on our land, and that's got manure coming on the land, and all this carbon is in the soil. When you have cows running through it, they're kind of just eating the tops of the grass. And plants are like humans, like animals. They want to survive. Mm-hmm. So when you have a cow just eating part of the grass, it makes the plant stronger. So more plants, more stronger. They need more photosynthesis. They grow more plants. It just keeps storing more carbon. But say you're on a conventional farm that's tilling up the land, and you're basically just popping open like a soda bottle, and all this carbon just gets released every time you kind of mess with that land. So it's a problem. The carbon is a problem in our world. It is, whether you believe in global warming or not. But there are fixes to it, and one of the major fixes is regenerative farming.
I love this. All right. How do you measure or track when your soil is healthy? Just by the final product?
You can, my kids are, especially the older boys, and this might sound gross to a city girl, but for my country kids, they love in the wintertime when there's cow pies, right? Cow patties, the manure that's kind of sitting in the field, and you lift it up, you will see so many worms and bugs, and there's just so much life in the soil. You reach your hand into a soil, you'll find bugs, and you'll find that rich soil that's soft and not rock hard where you're trying to dig into something that's just not letting go. You want your soil to be loose and not compacted down and dry and lifeless. You want that soil to show that there's life living in there and there's nutrients to support that life.
So in the Dust Bowl, right, as we're going to talk about, when they're doing the conventional farming and they're using machinery, right, these heavy machines to farm and till the land, that's also compacting this dry, gross dirt, not helping the situation.
Right. Yeah. So these huge machines and tractors and combines that are, going in and taking all the crops out, say these monocrops, they're just packing the land down. So it's so tight that for many reasons, one of the reasons is it causes more flooding, right? There's nowhere for the water to go. So when it rains, there's nowhere for it to go. So there's flooding. There's also just erosion. The soil will just erode away. There's no roots. So when you have a pasture, say, full of different types of grasses and plants, those roots are deep down in the soil. So it's keeping the soil where you want it to be. If you just have bare land, it'll just wash away. So that's how we're losing a lot of soil, just as a country. We're just losing incredible amounts of soil just to erosion and the weather that's coming. And there's almost even microclimates where you have the soil that's causing more storms and more rain, and then it's washing away more soil. It's just a really bad cycle that we've become in.
Yeah. Is there a way to reverse once the soil goes bad, in a large area like the Midwest? Is there a way to kind of replenish and start fresh again?
Well, I think that it may take, if you have just completely dead soil. We've seen different documentaries on regenerative agriculture, and there are farmers that will go to these dead lands and they will start grazing cattle and start taking pigs and foraging different animals and livestock and planting things. And once, 5 years, that land can be turned around. It just takes time. Like everything else on the farm, it takes time to change. And it's doable, though. We just have to actually be mindful of it.
Yeah, a more mindfulness. That's great. All right. I know you're big into worm casings in your soil. Let's talk about that, because my mother has started using it in her gardening, in New Jersey, which is not a farm, but, she has lush plants and crops and things on her property. And she said it has been a life-changing thing to implement into her soil. So tell me about what is a worm casing? Is it something gross?
It's just worm poop, basically.
Oh, worm poop. Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you have, if you're gardening, just if you're a hobby gardener and you want worms in your soil, because it just means you have healthy soil, basically, and they eat the plants and they poop them out, and it gets basically manure from any animal is actually very healthy if done properly. So even, I know I didn't talk much about our chickens, but one of our major products is our chicken, or pasture-raised chicken. So it's kind of similar with the worm casings, where you use the manure of the chicken to heal the land as well. So we have these little chicken tractors. I don't know if are you familiar with what
I don't know. I don't know a chicken tractor. Tell me about it.
Okay, so when you have pasture-raised chickens, it means that they're out on a pasture, right? So just a wide open field is where these chickens are raised. But there's predators in a field. You want to keep your chickens confined to one area so they don't just wander off. So they're basically just these little tiny houses with a little roof to keep them protected from the elements of the, rain and sun and heat, and also from predators. So we typically do 100 chickens at a time. So we have 4 little houses for the chickens, and we move them every single day. So they go in a little area, maybe like a 10 by 5 little area, however big the house is. And then all day they just eat the bugs and they scratch up the land and they basically make it down to bare dirt. And they'll eat the worms too, the worm casings, but it's all nutrient dense, right? But chicken poop, chicken manure is full of nitrogen. So nitrogen is one of the major things that plants use to survive on their food. So then every day we move them. So you have basically a patch of pasture that's covered in chicken manure. And then we move it just the length of the tractor so that it's fresh grass for the next 24 hours. And when I tell you, after a few weeks, the grass that these chickens were on previously is some of the most luscious green, dark grass you've ever seen in your entire life.
Okay, I want a before and after.
I will. And I guess, the whole idea of regenerative farming is then you run your chickens through the pasture, and then the grass grows super lush and thick. And then you run your cows through. And then the cows, when we do this, the cows will run right to that chicken manure grass. They love it. It's crazy.
This is a wild life you're living, Melissa. Okay, so we're going to go to our last commercial break. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 1250 Broadway in New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970. The Answer.
Welcome back to the show. I'm joined again tonight by Melissa Sumner of Sumner Farms out in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, and we're having a great time talking about farming, but more importantly, farming the right way. Now, Melissa, before we went to the break, we were talking about soil, and I did want to know, how do you handle like pests and weeds if you're not using the synthetic inputs?
Right. So in our garden, we have a pretty large garden for a backyard garden. We do sell products at markets sometimes. It's just hand weeding.
Weeding. Woof.
Yeah, and it takes up every day we have to weed, and thankfully we do have a bunch of kids, a flock of kids that part of their chores is find a bed and start weeding it. But we don't use any chemicals. Yeah, we don't use anything for that. So, our cows, so I'm sure if anyone listening has been around a cow, in the summertime it's hot, there's the manure around, there's flies on cows. That's a thing. And, you can tell they're bothered by it. And when we go around the cows, they'll flock to us too. And it's kind of like, how do we get rid of these flies? And most people will there's feed that has insecticide in the food for the cows. thankfully our cows don't eat food, so they don't eat insecticides. So I just buy essential oils in bulk, and I put them in a sprayer, and we'll spray the cows down with a mixture of citronella and tea tree and orange and whatever else we can think of to avoid.
Does it really work?
Pests. Yeah, it definitely cuts down on them for sure. And we put things in their feed. We put garlic powder in their feed or in their mineral. It's like they have like a salt that cows require. So we'll put garlic powder in their mineral. And there's certain things, apple cider vinegar in their water, just to kill anything, and just as natural as we possibly can.
Oh my goodness, this is so involved. All right, walk me through a day in the life as a farmer. Like, what time are you getting up, going to sleep? What are the chores throughout the day? Because I'm sure you have like a routine.
Yeah, so obviously there's ebbs and flows with the farm. So I'll just talk you through like a full day when we have everything going on. We don't start too early. We do try to live an intentionally slow life. But, we'll get going around 7 o'clock in the summertime when the kids aren't at school. But so every part of the farm is pretty hands-on for us. It's very physical. So we kind of have to start the day and check on everybody. So we'll bring the chickens water and feed, and the pigs water and feed, make sure everybody's still alive and in where they're supposed to be. And then our cows, we have to go drive because our farm is pretty spread out. So we have to drive everywhere typically. So we'll drive over to the cows and fill them up on water. So our farm doesn't have water lines all over the place, so there's some pastures that we have to just unload water. So we'll fill up as many 5-gallon buckets as we can, drive it over, dump it out, fill up more, drive it over, dump it out, all day long. Cows drink a lot of water, especially if there's, a heat wave. So yeah, that's a big part of our day. Then we'll, typically go in the garden, do a lot of weeding, harvest, watering a lot of vegetables all the time because we also don't have a sprinkler system, so we just hand water the whole garden. And then all day it's just kind of making sure everybody's got their water filled up and making sure everybody's staying where they're supposed to be. No cows are getting loose or escaping or anything like that.
What happens if a cow gets loose?
It's happened.
Where do you find them down the road at the 7-Eleven and have to bring them back?
I mean, we've had our neighbor call and hey, just so you know, there's a cow in my backyard, stuff like that. But where we live, it's very normal to just see cows loose on the road. It's just kind of part of where we live. You'll see on Facebook, oh, just so you know, my herd's loose. Don't chase them. They'll come back. Cows don't really want to go too far. So thankfully we haven't had anything too crazy, but they'll just kind of especially the younger one, the calf, they like to explore, and they can kind of get under the electric fence a little easier. So they'll get out, and then sometimes the mom will chase them. And, there's always something that's going on the farm that you don't want to happen. And it's always when I'm alone with the kids that I have to,
You have to go find the cows. I mean, why would they want to leave anyway? They have such a nice life on your farm.
Yeah, typically they're good, but there's some days, especially in the winter, once spring starts and they see the grass is starting to grow and they want to get out and they want to get to that fresh grass. So it's usually pretty calm, but there are days that it's chaotic. But so anyway, then in the evening we have to move all the animals. So we have to set up fencing. We have to go around, make sure the fence isn't damaged or no trees fell on it, and then we set up, and then we have to move the cows and then do all the watering and the feed again. And
so you do that twice a day?
Yes, we move the animals typically once a day, but the food and the water has to be, at least twice a day or more than twice a day, depending on the heat. So, yeah.
Now, you talked earlier about setting up so predators didn't get on your farm. And did you ever run into a situation where you did have something that broke into the chicken tractor or anything like that?
Yeah, it does happen. So,
like what? Like a bear?
Not too many bears. I think it's mostly foxes. Weasels are really a problem because they just weasel under any little hole that they find. And a lot of the predators, it's very annoying. They don't actually want to eat the animals. They just leave them. They just kill them and they leave them. So it's kind of come on, you didn't even feed yourself. You're just taking
You're just killing my chicken.
Yeah. So the chickens are really the only thing that we've had to worry about. Predators, even falcons and stuff, and hawks getting our egg layers, or foxes will get into the coop at night. It's something that as a farmer you're just always going to have to deal with at some point. And
occupational hazard.
Yeah. And Our cows, there's nothing really to worry about. We have a few cows that have horns, so nothing will really bother them. And the pigs are huge, so they're good on their own. But I think it's just something that you wake up sometimes and you see it and you're like, ah, man, it's just part of it, even though it is difficult to see.
All right. So your farm is like one-stop shopping for like all sorts of farming stuff. Are you butchering your own cows and meat chickens?
So we do butcher our own meat chickens. We have like a certification through Pennsylvania that we can butcher 1,000 or less chickens on our facility. So we have, there's certain certifications you need, like running water, hot water, like different things that we have. So we have a certification that we butcher the chickens on the farm. For the cows and the pigs, we outsource that to a local butcher. But something that we really didn't know or expect going into this is that custom butchers like that are so hard to find. And, we've had to travel with our livestock in a trailer, 2-3 hours away just to get our animals butchered. It's like a dying art right now. Is butchering,
I feel like Ian should get into that.
When we've called to schedule them, they're like, do you want to work here? That's something they all ask because they're desperate for help. It's actually sad because it's a big part of getting the meat to customers, and it's really hard. We have to schedule our cows and our pigs to get butchered sometimes 2 years in advance. Sometimes before the animal's born, you have to schedule a butcher date.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. A lot of the quality is also relying on the butcher. So if you don't have a good butcher and you don't have a good spot, it's a bummer because you're like, I worked 2 years to get this cow from being born on my farm all the way ready to a grass-fed cow that's ready to be butchered, and then it comes back and you're just, sometimes the packaging you're not happy with, or the cuts could have been better, and it's kind of, you really have to do your work and find a quality butcher. We have a great one right now that we are never going to lose. We're never leaving him. Yeah.
So are there any other farmers or organizations around you that you look up to?
Honestly, where we are, we moved to a very old farming town. So it's a very agriculture-heavy town. There's farms all over. You're driving down the road, there's cattle everywhere. I thought my kids would live a unique experience, but they don't where we are. It's everybody has a farm. Everybody's raising bees. It's very normal where we are. But I don't know of any farm that actually does regenerative agriculture where we are, because it is a very rare way to raise your animals, because it is very labor intensive, very expensive. And a lot of the old, 5th, 4th, 5th generation farming families, they just do things the way that they were taught, and they don't know that there's a different way to do it.
So, when we talk about the food supply chain in this country, you see hands-on what goes into farming this particular way, which is the ideal way to farm if we want to give back to the land and raise just a better quality food. This can't really be replicated on a larger scale, can it? So the majority of what we're getting in grocery stores is kind of crap, even if it's organic.
It is. Yeah. I mean, organic is better than non-organic, but organic is basically just like, what can't you spray? What can't you use? Where it's not like, how do I make the most nutritious food? It's like, it's okay, but it's kind of just becoming like a term that doesn't really mean anything at this point. So I think that if you're listening, find a local farmer and ask them to see the farm, ask them to see how the animals are raised. I promise you there's farmers that are begging for more customers to come to them. And you're going to see that the prices are very, very comparable to grocery store, if not cheaper if you buy in bulk. It's doable, but there needs to be the market for it. That seems to be a very hard thing, is people want quality food, but they want to compare it to grocery store prices.
Right.
When, what you're putting inside your body is kind of the most important part of life, honestly. Your food is what's keeping you alive and keeping you healthy. So if you're going to invest in something, it really should be your food.
I love that. Melissa, thank you so much for your time tonight. I have a front seat to this because people don't know this, but you're my first cousin. So I've kind of been on this journey with you for a long time, even before you were a farmer. And I am here to support Sumner Farms any way I can because I'm passionate about this for you, okay? So thank you for listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. I hope you found this show educational and thought-provoking. And a special thank you to Melissa for taking the hour out of moving your cattle to help spread awareness about the importance of regenerative agriculture. Tune in next week for a show all about at-home cooking tips. I'll be joined by Chef Carmine Di Giovanni, and he's going to guide us through making your own pasta at home and even some barbecue cooking tips for the summer. It'll be fun for sure. But that's the show for tonight. Thanks for listening and have a great night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.